Government forces in Syria killed 20 people in attacks on pro-democracy protesters and army defectors. The opposition called the attacks a violation of the peace agreement that Syria and other Arab nations signed Wednesday in Cairo. Syria has made previous pledges to withdraw troops from civilian areas, but in some of those cases it only took out some of the soldiers. The United Nations estimates that more than 3,000 people have died, including children, since the anti-government protest erupted in March.
Hundreds of people have been killed in days of violence in Nigeria. The Boko Haram group has claimed responsibility for bombings and other attacks. The group's goal is to establish an Islamic state in the northern region of the country. A Christian church was one of many targets in the recent attacks. Nigeria is split between the majority Christian south and the predominantly Muslim north.
A series of rare earthquakes in Oklahoma has shaken residents and damaged infrastructure. The largest was a magnitude 5.6 quake that jolted Oklahoma State University Stadium. It was followed by several 4-point quakes that left many residents with damaged homes. The shaking crumbled walls, knocked over furniture, and buckled streets. No deaths or injuries have been reported. Oklahoma has about 50 small quakes each year, but seldom has large ones.
Some popular childhood games are gaining some older players. Adults have formed leagues to play games they enjoyed, well, a long time ago. Sarah Pila tells us more.
There are social sports leagues around the Southland, so adults don't have to miss out on playing the childhood games they love. The grown-ups have found that no matter how old they are, the game is still as much fun as when they were kids.
All right, on three. Tequila!
That's the sound of victory after a fun game of kickball. Whether you're kicking a ball, throwing a ball, or hitting a ball, adults are still playing the games they played as kids.
I think that people really enjoy kickball, and it may be my league or another league, but they really have a good time because anybody can play it. It's really good for anybody over the age of 21. You know, you can play it in your 30s, your late 20s, or your 40s. It's fun. It's just fun.
On weekends, baseball players 50 years old and older are defying the odds of middle age to play a sport that inspired them as children in the 1960s.
Not only a stress relief, but it's a joy. Just being able to play baseball at our age that we are today, knowing that we have friends, cohorts we grew up with as kids that can't even walk, much less run or throw a baseball itself.
It's just so satisfying to get out there and throw maybe 5-6 innings or catch a few and hit a few out there and yet be satisfied even at our tender age of 62.
In 1995, Robbie Robinson couldn't walk because of arthritis in his hip. After getting a hip replacement, he wanted to come out to the ballpark just to get another at-bat. At 60 years old, he's never felt better.
In 2011, I played in 67 ball games, had over 200 at-bats, pitched over 216 innings, and I'd say the titanium hip has worked out pretty good for me.
And remember playing dodgeball? Whether they're playing in uniforms or costumes, dodgeballers are always encouraging others to join their society.
And once they start playing and remembering how fun it was when they were kids and how much more fun it is when you're an adult, they just kind of join.
We're called the World Dodgeball Society, and it's meant to be society in all aspects. So there's the social aspect of it is just as important as the competitive aspect.
Dodgeball is one of the childhood games that has grown in popularity with the World Dodgeball Society. Since its inception, they've seen more than 4,500 players walk through their doors.
And Sarah Pila is back with more sports highlights.
A Penn State University football coach has been charged with sexually abusing children. 2 university officials have resigned following the scandal and will be indicted on charges of perjury. A grand jury report says former defensive coordinator Jerry Sandusky allegedly abused young boys from 1994 through 2009. A former student found Sandusky abusing a child in the Penn State shower and reported the abuse to head football coach Joe Paterno. Paterno reported the news to athletic director Jim Curley and Gary Schultz. Apparently, no one reported the abuse to police. Both Curley and Schultz have resigned following the perjury allegations. Sandusky's attorney, Joe Amendola, says his client is reeling from the accusations.
Jerry's very, very depressed. He's very upset. He's very distraught about the charges, the allegations, and the knowledge that regardless of whether he eventually proves his guilt or innocence, that people are going to think that he did this.
Sandusky is free on $100,000 bail, but the charges he faces could put him behind bars for life. More than 100,000 filled the stands at the game between #1 LSU and #2 Alabama. The defensive showdown never had a touchdown, but had plenty of field goals and attempts. In overtime, Cade Foster has the chance to give the Crimson Tide the lead, but he misses his third field goal of the game. Score is still 6-6. Still in overtime, LSU has the chance to win on a 25-yard field goal. Drew Alleman does what the Tide couldn't do, and he kicks LSU to a 9-6 victory over Alabama. The Tigers remain #1 in the BCS standings. This game was the second lowest score between a #1 and #2 game in the AP 75-year history. The UCLA Bruins squeezed out a win over the Arizona State Sun Devils 29-28. In the final seconds of the game, Sun Devil kicker Alex Garou missed a 46-yard field goal attempt that would have won the game. UCLA and Arizona State are tied for first place in the Pac-12 South. The Bruins now control their own destiny in their division with 3 games left in the regular season. And after the heartbreaking loss in 3 overtimes to Stanford, the Trojans found someone to crush. They beat the Colorado Buffaloes 42-17. They also set a new USC record along the way. Quarterback Matt Barkley passed for 6 touchdowns. He has surpassed some of the greats in USC history, including Rodney Peete, Carson Palmer, Matt Leinart, and Mark Sanchez. Barkley has passed for 28 touchdowns this season. Commissioner David Stern has put the Players Association on the clock. With the deadline looming, union officials summoned player reps from all 30 teams for a mandatory meeting. They will decide whether to accept the league's latest labor proposal that would pay players 51% of annual basketball-related income. If the union doesn't accept the deal by the deadline, Commissioner Stern says it will offer just 47%. Sources from the Players Association say the league's offer is unacceptable. And the Lakers and Clippers are locked out, but the LA Kings are playing hockey, and fans and basketball fans are welcome to come to Staples Center. But the Kings say they aren't trying to take advantage of fans alienated by the lockout. Instead, Kings owners say they are taking this opportunity to reach out to fans who know there are fewer professional sports being played. Kings Chief Operating Officer Chris McGowan says the NBA lockout will give LA sports fans a chance to see the great lineup the Kings put together this season. And with that, let's go to the ice. The LA Kings couldn't end their losing slump at home against the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Kings have only scored 11 goals in the last 6 games. The game is tied at the end of regulation by Pittsburgh's Chris Kunitz and is forced into a shutout. Kunitz again scores. This time, it's in the game-winning goal to give the Penguins a 3-2 victory. The Kings will face San Jose on the road before playing 4 games at home. And finally, the Anaheim Ducks ended their 13-day road trip with a 5-0 loss to the Detroit Red Wings. The Wings' victory over the Ducks snapped their 6-game losing streak. Nicholas Lidstrom had 2 goals and an assist. Jimmy Howard made 22 saves for his 7th NHL shutout. Detroit outshot the Ducks 17-1 in the first 13.5 minutes of the game. The Ducks are in last place in the Pacific Division. That's all for sports. Back to you.
Pediatricians are now telling parents of toddlers to turn off their TVs. Valley View's Lori Bolivan has the story.
Television has become parents' most reliable babysitter. But a new statement just released by the American Academy of Pediatrics says parents should not let their children under 2 watch TV. Studies reveal watching television has nothing positive to offer children at this age. But for many parents, turning off the tube is not the easiest option.
I need to clean, do the dishes, do things around the house, and it basically babysits my son throughout the day. I can't hold them and do the dishes at the same time, so it allows me to get a lot of stuff done.
The study finds toddlers learn far more from playing on their own or with a parent than they do from watching TV. Ronnie Holloway has been the director of Pinecrest Preschool and Toddler Center in Northridge for 15 years.
I believe there are many other things that we can be doing with toddlers and older children instead of television. A lot of interaction between the peers, a lot of interaction between their caregivers. Television is not a part of that.
New mom Barbette Cabrera tries to prevent her daughter, 11-month-old Sydney, from watching television.
I don't put her in front of the TV ever. From what I've read, babies' eyes and brains are developing, and they're just not ready yet for the fast-moving images they're bright, they're changing all the time, and that's not what real life looks like.
I spoke to parent Romina Richardson in Newport Beach, who has a different opinion.
They can certainly study my daughter. She's proven that the programs that we've allowed her to watch has taught her ABCs to read. By 13, 14 months, she was reading.
With all of technology's advances, TV is everywhere. Over 90% of parents surveyed said their child under 2 watched some form of electronic media.
I think that technology is changing rapidly, but childhood is not. A child who was happy with the Jack-in-the-Box 30 years ago will still be happy with the Jack-in-the-Box now.
Even though the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends toddlers shouldn't watch any TV, they realize this is not realistic for most families. Pediatricians agree that there are many quality educational videos on the market for children, but the child has to be at least 2 years old before they can understand and comprehend what the video is teaching. Lori Bullivin for Valley View News.